It's the near future, and the U.S. Army's 82nd Airborne Division has been activated under the Global Response Force. After conducting a joint forcible entry, landing forces deep inside contested territory, they achieved their objective of seizing a strategic airstrip that will allow Air Force C-17 Globemasters to bring in additional ground assets. As those cargo jets arrive at the newly established austere forward base, the first piece of armor that rolls down their ramps is the new M10 Booker. This snapshot offers a glimpse of what the M10 is being procured to do, but its intended role within the Army is often misunderstood. While the service doesn't want you to call it a light tank, that is mostly what it's meant to be, but not to take the place of the M1 Abrams or even fight alongside it, but to provide rapidly deployable, highly agile, protected firepower with specially trained crews to Army divisions that currently have no tanks at all. At its core, the M10 is designed as an infantry support vehicle, meant to serve as light infantry forces' heaviest direct-fire weapon at their most decisive point in battle, filling the gap between softer-skinned vehicles and heavily armored Abrams tanks. The decision to name the Booker after both an infantry and armor soldier was intentional. As the end product of the Army's Mobile Protective Firepower program, the platform was designated the M10 Booker Infantry Assault Vehicle on 14 June 2023. The two distinguished soldiers it was named after are Private Robert D. Booker, who earned the Congressional Medal of Honor for his actions in Tunisia in 1943, and Staff Sergeant Stephen Booker, who earned the Distinguished Service Cross outside of Baghdad in 2003. But how it became a reality and garnered its esteemed name is a fascinating story. The 1997 retirement of the M551A1 Sheridan light tank saw the end of American light infantry, having armor integrated with their formations. Since then, those units lacked a relatively light, highly mobile, armored firing platform, sporting a high-caliber cannon, all in an agile, quickly deployable package. The global war on terror battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan had little need for armor that bridged the gap between dedicated Abrams main battle tanks and infantry support vehicles like Bradley infantry fighting vehicles and Strykers. The nature of irregular warfare and counterinsurgency operations lent itself to decentralized light infantry operations, with heavier vehicles only needed in specific support roles that the Abrams handled with no problems. The need to quickly land forces in a peer adversary's backyard was not a priority either, but the well-established conflicts that featured large bedded-down forces in Iraq and Afghanistan were. American Stryker Brigade Combat Teams, or SBCTs, previously fielded the Stryker Mobile Gun System, or MGS variant, armed with an M68A2 105mm cannon, but these were divested in 2021 due to autoloader issues, and the aging gun causing maintenance bottlenecks. Also, the Stryker, which was built for speed, had armor that left a lot to be desired, only having all-around protection against rounds up to 14.7mm in size and artillery shrapnel. The Stryker's wheeled propulsion, though excellent on hard surfaces, limited the MGS's maneuverability in harsher terrain, constraining their usage on the battlefield as well. The Army would need something with much more protection that could operate forward on rougher terrain in a near-peer fight against a major power, and specifically for their Infantry Brigade Combat Teams, or IBCTs. Currently, the Army operates around the Brigade Combat Team model, where brigades consisting of 7 battalions and about 4,000 soldiers operate as independent units. IBCTs are centered around light infantry with minimal vehicles. SBCTs are built around the Stryker platform, and ABCTs, or Armored Brigade Combat Teams, are the heaviest, consisting of mechanized infantry and Abrams. As of now, ABCTs are the only ones to have tanks at all, but Booker is looking to change that. Currently, American IBCTs only have fleets of light vehicles, such as Humvees, and their replacement, the Joint Light Tactical Vehicle, or JLTV. These are typically outfitted with a 50 caliber machine gun, Mark 19 grenade launchers, or TOW anti-tank guided missiles to provide heavier organic fire support within light infantry battalions and companies. The Army's shift over the last decade from counterinsurgency to higher-end warfare, focused on adversaries like China and Russia, led to the desire to once again have a light tank-like vehicle to fill the gap left behind after the exit of the Sheridan, that the existing Humvees and JLTVs simply couldn't fill. In order for IBCTs to operate at maximum effectiveness in both offense and defense, they need a more potent vehicle fleet with more firepower that can be on scene long before the slower deploying Armored Brigade Combat Teams are able to arrive in force. And with that, 2015 saw the beginning of the Mobile Protected Firepower, or MPF program, to fill this exact role. The primary goal was first to provide a platform capable of destroying obstacles, bunkers, and other fortifications, as well as engaging infantry holdup inside buildings. Second, The system needed to be able to engage light and medium armored vehicles, such as BMPs and BMDs, allowing infantry to increase their survivability and conserve TOW and Javelin ammunition for main battle tanks. Additionally, the vehicle needed protection against threats ranging from heavy machine guns to large caliber artillery shrapnel, airburst munitions, and explosive threats like mines and IEDs, all while being easily deployable from a C-17. On December 17, 2018, the Army awarded 2 middle-tier acquisition prototyping contracts to BAE Systems and General Dynamics Land Systems to rapidly produce demonstration platforms. General Dynamics' entry to the program was based on its own design, the Griffin II, while BAE's entry was based on the M8 Buford Armored Gun System light tank from the original Armored Gun System program in the 1980s. This program was created out of the poor performance of the Sheridan during Vietnam, with the goal of creating a light, air-droppable tank that solved many of the issues plaguing the M551 and replaced the fleet of TOW missile-equipped Humvees in use by light units. Ultimately, however, the program was shelved. The M8 derivative weighed 21 tons less than the Griffin II in its lightest configuration and used an auto-loading gun system, which reduced crew requirements from 4 to 3. Additionally, the BAE Systems vehicle was more conducive to field maintenance, with easier power pack access that didn't require mechanical overhead lift or wrecker support to repair, a major benefit for the strategically isolated environments it was expected to operate in. By contrast, General Dynamics design needed crane support, such as the HEMTT, for any maintenance requiring the engine to be pulled. This would slow down the process of repairs and create a potential bottleneck if multiple engines go down. As a result, HEMTT availability in forward areas could become a limiting factor. Ultimately, General Dynamics was awarded the contract for their Griffin II design on June 28, 2022. The company was given $1.14 billion, which covered the initial low-rate production order of 96 vehicles. One of the most notable advantages of the General Dynamics prototype over the BAE Systems was the high level of parts commonality it had with the M1 Abrams, and that the M8 derivative arrived several months late due to delays, including those related to COVID-19. Just as the parts commonality streamlines logistics, the turret similarity to the Abrams aids in training. Incoming tankers will already be familiar with the fire control system and related gunnery tasks, while existing Abrams simulators can be used to cross-train new crews and maintainers. One issue that was quickly discovered in trials was high levels of toxic fumes inside the turret when firing the main gun, a problem that coincidentally plagued early Sheridan models. Crews had to modify the typical gunnery procedures to mitigate the buildup of these toxic gases. Additionally, according to reports, operationally realistic threats revealed vulnerabilities, but specific details of these are classified. 4 fixes were recommended based on initial trial runs. Implement system designs to reduce high levels of toxic fumes when firing. Improve the vehicle cooling system to lessen the preventative maintenance load on the crew. Address the classified survivability issues, and improve non-vehicle targets in gunnery such as bunkers and walls to increase training realism and value. After prototype adoption, General Dynamics was awarded a subsequent $256.6 million for a second intermediate phase purchase of an additional 26 Bookers in July of 2023. In a fight, the Booker brings a 105mm M35 cannon, originally developed for the aforementioned Armored Gun System program of the 1980s, and shares a version of the fire control system found in the M1 A2 SEP V3 variant. Like the Abrams, it also sports a coaxial 7.62 M240 machine gun and an M250 cal above the commander's hatch, but it lacks the additional loader's M240 on the top left of the M1 Abrams turret. The M10 requires a traditional crew of 4, which consists of the tank commander, gunner, driver, and loader in a standard layout, similar to that found on the Abrams. At top speed, on improved surfaces, the Booker is capable of reaching about 40 miles per hour, thanks to its MTU 8V199 TE22 800 horsepower diesel engine. This offers a much lower level of fuel consumption compared to the turbine-powered and much heavier Abrams, which is notorious for its thirst for kerosene. Bookers were designed with the option of attaching modular explosive reactive armor, or ERA tiles, which detonate once hit with an enemy projectile, preventing it from penetrating the hull. And these bricks, arranged in racks, can be replaced and swapped as needed. Noticeably, the first batch of M10s will lack an active protection system, or APS. The modular active protection system is the latest American APS system from Lockheed Martin, designed to intercept or hard kill incoming anti-tank guided missiles and rocket-propelled grenades, using non-explosive metallic pellets that impact and prematurely detonate or disable the incoming round. Future builds of the Booker may feature an active protection system, but until then the M10 will head into battle with traditional armor and optional ERA protection only. The Booker won't be equipped with anti-tank guided missile launchers, or integrated drone capabilities either, but this could change as doctrine gradually builds around the platform. As it stands, the Army's priority is to quickly get the M10 into soldiers' hands, to determine how it performs and how best to use it. Initial operational testing and evaluation will conclude in early fiscal year 2025. The results of this testing phase will be used to first validate the design, and second to lay the groundwork for any potential future upgrades to the system where needed. Testing data and soldier experience from the Booker's introduction might completely change how Army formations fight. This is about transforming our mounted formations, Brigadier General Jeffrey Norman stated in regards to the impacts Booker could have on the U.S. Army. This is about fighting differently, it's about organizing differently, and because of that, we'll likely need to train differently. So foundational to everything we are doing is the notion or the principle that what got us here may not necessarily be what gets us to the future. Current forecasting expects M10s to be fully integrated with the 82nd Airborne in late summer of 2026. Around this time, other light divisions will slowly begin to receive their first batches of Bookers as well. Currently, the 101st Airborne Division is expected to receive its initial set of M10s by second fiscal quarter of 2027, followed by a to-be-determined National Guard unit. However, most of the total 504 M10s ordered will not arrive until much later. At a minimum, the Army wants 4 Booker battalions by 2030, and the majority of vehicles delivered and in full operational status by 2035. Projected to hold a price tag of $13 million each, total life cycle costs, which takes into account sustainment, construction, maintenance, and upkeep, is expected to reach $17 billion. The Booker, which is the first new armor platform fielded by the Army in 2 decades, is envisioned as giving light infantry the necessary firepower and flexibility needed to get the job done on future battlefields. Or at least that's the Army's intention. Its 105mm rifled cannon lacks the firepower of the M1 Abrams 120mm smoothbore, and the M10 isn't as well armored, but the Booker places a much smaller strain on logistical support, while providing light infantry the ability to better engage armor, bunkers, and fortifications. The smaller logistical footprint and reduced size in comparison to the Abrams allows it to be deployed far more rapidly and with more flexibility. In a quickly developing and complex fight, a platoon of 4 Bookers on scene now is better than a pair of 2 Abrams tomorrow, and especially a week out or more. Weighing it at 41 tons, the Booker is roughly 40% lighter than the 70-plus ton M1 A2 SEP V3 currently fielded by the Army mechanized divisions. Its lack of large side skirts and overall smaller dimensions means 2 can fit inside the cargo hold of a C-17 in a combat-ready configuration. On the contrary, only 1 Abrams can fit inside a C-17, and that requires it to be in the stowed configuration, which is nowhere near combat-ready once it hits the ground. The task of reconfiguring Abrams tanks into a stowed package and then back into a fighting status needs significant effort, requiring either heavy lifting equipment inside of a maintenance bay or the use of an M88 Hercules recovery vehicle, which would demand its own dedicated airlift to a forward area. Both of these options can be impractical or outright impossible, given the often austere nature and isolated disposition of airborne operations. The requirements needed to rush Abrams into the fight brings a high level of risk for ground commanders, as the time lost gives an enemy more opportunity to move and maneuver. Additionally, the resources spent getting the M1s into the fight as fast as possible reduces those that could be used for other combat operations. In fact, in some circumstances, getting the Abrams there at all in a timely manner is totally impossible. Hence the need for a far more agile asset, and crews that are highly trained to work directly with the troops they are tasked to support. Beyond all of this, one of the biggest hurdles in deploying Abrams quickly and using it to directly support light infantry is that they're not integrated into any of the Army's infantry brigade combat teams, and are only found in armor brigade combat teams. The placement of Booker directly into light divisions means far more effective integration between armor and infantry, and streamlined participation into the Global Response Force, a DoD-level requirement to the Army, tasked with placing at minimum a battalion of soldiers anywhere in the world in 18 hours or less. As it stands, there are currently no American Abrams formations capable of fulfilling this 18-hour requirement. It would be days at best before light infantry troops could expect tanks. The M10 will remedy this deficiency, and can deploy with the infantry units they are embedded into, and train with regularly. However, before light infantry divisions can expect armored support that can keep up with them in terms of sudden deployments, the M10 has to be fielded to scale. Within selected light divisions, the Army plans to establish a full M10 battalion, following a typical structure of a Higher Headquarters Company, or HHC, a Forward Support Company, or FSC, and 3 line companies, each with 3 platoons of 4 Bookers each. In each line company, the company commander and executive officer will command their own Bookers. Those additional 2, and any other company-level support vehicles, will make up the headquarters section or platoon. Booker battalions, those structured similarly, will operate as a divisional-level asset. Based on mission, threat, and individual strategic requirements, M10s will be operationally attached to light infantry formations as needed. This could range from a section of 2 Bookers supporting a platoon to an entire company of 14 M10s supporting a battalion. Though the organizational structure of M10 battalions is similar to their Abrams counterparts, the larger integration and placement inside of a division is vastly different. Most Abrams operate within a combined arms battalion, or CAB, with their line units being a mixture of either 2 tank companies and 1 mechanized infantry company, or 1 tank company and 2 mechanized infantry companies. Tank companies can operate independently, or more commonly, swapping infantry and armor platoons within the battalion for specific operations, rather than serving strictly as an attachment to the infantry units. The direct integration of the Booker into these light divisions means they serve as an organic asset to the infantry. M10s being placed strictly in a support role allows for better training with infantry formations, and builds organizational experience in utilizing them as a ground asset. Conversely, current commanders in light infantry formations would have M1s arriving at the tail end of a rapid deployment operation and have little to no experience in working with them. Above all else, Booker solves this issue. The Army is stressing that the Booker is not a light tank. Many experts disagree though, pointing out that with its tracks, armored hull, traversing turret, and large caliber cannon, and lack of infantry carrying capacity, checks all the boxes for a tank. This deliberate emphasis by the Army over nomenclature is largely to ensure that there is a clear distinction in roles and responsibilities between the Abrams and the Booker. So to recap, the M10 will differ from how the M1 Abrams is used in the following ways. The M10 will be able to keep up with the incredible speed in which light infantry units can deploy, especially during a crisis and into contested areas. The Booker will be an organic light infantry asset. It'll be based with these units and train with them daily, creating highly experienced crews and a deeply integrated force. M10s are not being procured to take on main battle tanks along the leading edge of a battle. They will exist to directly support the soldiers they have trained alongside to accomplish their objectives, being called up as needed for special effects. While it's years before the Bookers fill out their formations, the current projections of future warfare and lessons learned in current conflicts are shaping its doctrine. For example, in a theoretical fight on Taiwan in which the US could actually access the island, the geography of mostly rugged mountains overlooking flat rolling plains with densely populated cities would lend itself to benefit the Booker over the Abrams. Their smaller size and weight would allow a more rapid deployment to the island, a critical requirement to establish an effective, time-sensitive defense. This would also aid in moving through restricted urban terrain along narrower roadways, and the ability to utilize bridges and streets that would otherwise not withstand the crushing weight of an Abrams. The 105mm M35 cannon would also prove highly effective against PLA vehicles, as the majority of their amphibious forces utilize light armor, such as the ZBD-05 and Type 15 light tank, which are vulnerable to its caliber of fire. On a battlefield closer in nature to Ukraine, the wide flat terrain lends itself to massive sightlines. The range and accuracy of the Booker's cannon would provide extended direct fire support for maneuvering infantry as they push through denser terrain more suitable for dismounted movement. The ability to use the maximum effective range of the cannon means the Booker would excel in engaging fortified defensive emplacements and structures with high explosive rounds before the infantry got within range of enemy weapons. However, the lack of any dips or rises in terrain would leave the Booker without the option to fight from cover on offense. The lighter logistical load, especially in the realm of fuel, would allow for longer operational endurance without the need to be pulled from the line for refueling or push vulnerable logistical assets in harm's way. This lighter logistical footprint will also allow the M10 to move faster and farther with the infantry it's supporting. In combat, light infantry would maneuver forward and bring up the M10 as needed to engage armor using its sabot ammunition and harden targets of opportunity with high explosive rounds before infantry pushes forward again. This kind of large-scale bounding between infantry and Bookers increases survivability of the platform, maximizing the effects of its cannon while minimizing the risks from its thinner armor. This careful approach to its usage is the key factor in why the Army stresses that the M10 is not just a smaller Abrams and provides protected larger caliber, precise direct fire capabilities to the infantry. In its current configuration, one of the Booker's biggest struggles, like most armored vehicles, comes in a tightly confined urban fight where its lighter armor and lack of an active protection system puts it at risk of any explosive ordnance thrown at it from close range and unexpected vectors. One of the biggest questions emerging regarding Booker's relevance on future battlefields is its potential vulnerability to lower-end drones, like the first-person view drones that are wreaking havoc on armor in Ukraine. This threat is only getting more sophisticated and numerous with each passing day, and has already shown itself capable of knocking out the most sophisticated armor, including the M1 Abrams. Bookers, and the troops they operate alongside, will need ever more capable drone countermeasures and air defense systems that can keep up with them to confront this threat. This issue isn't specific to the M10. It has wide-ranging impacts for all armor that could find itself on or near a drone-infested front in the future. But the fact that Booker is meant to be so rapidly deployable and to support light infantry's lightning-fast actions on the battlefield means the M10 may have less support from air defenses and other countermeasures during a rapidly developing future fight. As urban battles in Gaza and Ukraine rage on, and lessons from future conflicts are factored in, Booker's capabilities and baseline configuration are bound to change. And as the international security situation erodes, with Russia threatening Europe, China eyeing Taiwan, Middle Eastern conflicts reigniting, and an increasingly aggressive posture from North Korea, it remains to be seen if the M10 will be the right choice for the next fight. But in the meantime, the Army will get a highly mobile protected firepower system that can at least be ready to participate in combat operations on very short notice in whatever future contingencies arise, including being delivered into highly contested territory alongside light infantry forces in the opening stages of a major conflict.